item number 1, 2024-966 is deferred. Item number 2, 2025-138. All right, we have a motion and a second on the bill. First, Councilmember Diamond, if you want to go ahead and lay the groundwork for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the courtesy of the floor. I'll be super brief. This bill has been around for a long time, so people should have been able to read it, ask their questions of OGC and anybody else to understand what's in it. Purpose of the bill essentially is to get a report from the mayor's office as to how much money and in what way are we spending on illegal aliens in Jacksonville, and 2, to get status of our federal grants that are related to the same types of things. To get a rundown on the city's employment practices when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion. And the last one is the one that probably got the most notice of folks, which is essentially stop spending Jacksonville taxpayer funds on people who are not in Jacksonville legally. So that's the purpose of the bill. I understand Councilman O'Mara's got an amendment. I've read it. I'm not going to get in a back and forth on the amendment today. If there's stuff I want to do on the amendment, I'll do that at Finance and Rules tomorrow. But
okay.
I'm available here, and Miss Mary helped write the bill, so she knows as much about it as I do. Thank you.
All right, understood. So again, guys, we don't have a queue up here, so I'm just going to kind of, I guess we'll kind of circle it to the left. Councilmember Peluso, and then we'll go to Councilmember Amaro. I think you have an amendment to offer, and then we'll go into discussion on the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. Oftentimes, I thank someone for writing a bill, and I say, oh, thank you for bringing this bill to our attention. I will not say that today. This is cruel. This is sick. This is unnecessary for city government, and I'm very disappointed that we even have to be debating this. I'm sorry that it's taken this long that we are. I understand there's an amendment, but I'm going to vote everything down. This bill should not exist. It should be withdrawn. It adds additional burdens on city functions and our staff. It adds additional burdens on families that are trying to make sure they're getting services, and it puts people... We're literally targeting human beings in our city. And we could talk about the merits of national immigration policy, but at the end of the day, it feels like we're falling into a place that our country pulled itself out of during McCarthyism and some of our darkest years up until the civil rights movement of the 1960s. We should stop doing these odd pandering bills. I'm voting everything down, voting the amendment down, voting this bill down. It should be withdrawn, and I'm going to move to do that probably after this process. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on the bill? Nope. All right. Councilmember Morrow, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got an amendment, friendly amendment I'd like to offer to this legislation. Tremendous respect for my colleague, Mr. Diamond, and where his heart is. But from the very beginning, I believe this bill to be an indictment of a problem that does not exist. It does not exist. It's hyperbole. And as the folks on the street would say, it is ratchet in nature. But to make it more palatable, I offer this friendly amendment to the language that will accomplish some of what the intent is and mitigate some of what I think deemed to be injurious action that this legislation will cause. If the objective is to get a report, you can get a report. If the objective is to get status, you can get that. So I don't know even why it's necessary, but nevertheless, I offer the Amaro amendment. Can I get a second on it or something?
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the Amaro amendment. So we're going to open it up for discussion on this and hopefully a little bit of a further detailed explanation on what exactly changes. Obviously, we have it here. This is the first time I'm seeing it. So is there any initial discussion? I'll go around the queue again. Yes? Yeah. Councilmember Peluso, is that a yes? Okay.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Chair. No, I'll be brief on this one. I mean, while I fully respect and appreciate the fact that you're trying to polish a turd, you're trying to help out an awful bill. None of this is necessary. None of this should be in the function of our city government. and it's really distracting to the business of the city. I'm going to vote it down. I'm going to vote the bill down. I'm going to ask for a withdrawal. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on the Amaro amendment? Yeah, let's go ahead and get a further explanation if there's no other auditors or Ms. Stefopoulos.
Through the chair to the committee, I'll do my best. I was not involved in the
Who
process.
authored this?
It was authored by Mr. Reingold in coordination, I believe, with the administration as a friendly amendment for Mr. Amaro
Okay.
to offer.
Do you mind if I have him explain it then?
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Reingold.
Can I clarify a point?
Yeah, sure. I just,
Just through the chair to Ms. Stefopoulos,
good job.
you said the administration and Mr. Reingold put together this amendment.
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem. So my understanding is Mr. Amaro has indicated this is a friendly amendment that he is offering, and I believe that his office, in coordination with the administration, Ms. Norris is here to speak to it, and Mr. Reingold, who authored the amendment, were all collaborated on this item.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Ms. Norris, are you going to do the honors of explaining the amendment?
Yes, Brittany Norris for the administration. So the Amaro amendment takes several steps. One, it sort of mitigates some of the bureaucracy created by this bill. We confirmed with our city departments that the reports and the confirmations requested really aren't necessary because those things don't exist. It also updates, defines, or builds in an exception for medical care and social services in the limitation of city funds with nonprofits and their programs. And it also creates a more defined scope, not just all unauthorized immigrants, but rather specifically, again, the exception for medical care and social services, not limited to welfare activities, victim service providers such as labor and sex trafficking, which is a real concern in Jacksonville, and then programs for substance abuse and mental illness. And then also it limits it to programs that serve or target individuals 18 years of age or older known to be unauthorized aliens. So we sort of narrow the scope of what falls into this reporting.
All right, Councilmember Salem, you still have the floor if you'd like to ask any follow-up questions on that. Your pause? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Clark. Oh, and welcome, Ms. Clark-Murray. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I realize that the system's down, so
yes, ma'am.
I guess we'll just need to get your attention. Good morning, Ms. Norris.
Good morning.
So, Florida statute, how it defines an authorized alien. I want to hone in on what you just said in regards to that. So, the city is changing. In this amendment, the city has changed the definition of authorized alien. Just tell me what that is again.
So, no, we have not changed the definition of unauthorized alien. Okay. The initial bill just says all unauthorized aliens. We have narrowed the scope with this amendment to focus on unauthorized aliens 18 years or older.
Okay. All right. Now I understand. All right. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
All right. Any other questions on the Amaro amendment? No? Excuse me. Okay. I'll just make a quick comment. I'll support the amendment just by the nature of, my colleague's done a lot of work on this, but I would just say the explanation needs a firm tune-up for the rest of these committees because I didn't understand anything that was just said. So, no, it's fine. I mean, there needs to be a very clear, this is what the bill says, this is what the amendment does, this is the overlap, this is what's taken out, this is what's not taken out. That wasn't provided, but I'm not going to go into it any further. I'm going to support the amendment because I know Councilmember Amaro has obviously done that on the back end. So with that, we're going to take a hand vote on the amendment. So all in favor of the Amaro amendment signify by raising your hand. All right, 2, 3, or 3, 4, and then 4 against. Okay, high hand raised. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have it's a 4-4. So it fails. All right, and let's do all opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So the amendment fails, correct? All right. So now the amendment has failed. We're going to go back to the bill, and we'll start on the left, and we'll keep going around. All right, we got a full queue, kind of. All right, Councilmember Peluso, go ahead. And if you're going to, let's go to the bill, if you don't mind. before you offer your withdrawal?
Do you have a motion? Yes. thank
Okay,
you.
all right, thank you. All right, so on the bill, anything on the bill over here? Councilmember Miller, do you have anything on the bill? Oh, Councilmember Amaro, did you want to go? All right, go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I rise to say that this bill does not really accomplish anything. It's addressing a problem that does not exist. It's in plain English. It's hyperbole. It is ratchet. And the reality is that this body can get a report on anything that it requires without having to codify a law to say I need a report on something. And so my amendment was to move the bill forward and ease what the language said. But since the amendment failed, I'm going to vote against the bill. And I like Councilman Diamond. He's a great guy, but I can't support this. Thank you.
Councilmember Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, I guess I look at this a little bit differently, putting it in the bigger context. Maybe the wording, if I were authoring this and introducing it, maybe I'd have changed some of the wording, but that's a preference. I don't see this as cruel, sick, or unnecessary. The way I look at this is we are responsible for the purse strings for the city. And having a regular report of how we're spending taxpayer dollars, regardless of how that is, I think that's an acceptable thing to ask for. However we're spending our money. And you could say that we could get any information, and I agree with Councilman Amaro, we can, but should we have to ask for it? And in this case, I have to say in the bigger picture, I saw plane load after plane load during the last administration of people shipped in from all over the place into our airport. And then once that was determined, they understood, people knew they were being shipped in, they went to other airports. Estimates range anywhere from 15 to 20 million people during the last administration came into our country illegally. I do not see something that is introduced asking for information on how we're spending our money on, and on whom. I don't see that as a problem. So I look at this more from a financial stewardship perspective, maybe not from the emotional perspective that I've heard, and maybe that's just a different way of looking at this. But again, I don't have a problem with the overall concept of this bill, but like I said, maybe I would have, if I were doing this, would have changed some of the wording and maybe made adjustments. I voted no on Councilman Amaro's amendment only because I haven't had time to really digest it, and so hopefully by rules time I will have done so. But I voted no because I haven't had time to review those things, and that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll continue to go down the dais here. Councilmember Salem, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I share some of the my colleagues' frustration with the amendment. No reflection on Councilmember Romero, but the explanation was just very insufficient to me, and I think poorly written. Obviously, he didn't write it, but poorly written. But beyond that, this bill requires some reports, but it also prohibits funding to go to certain organizations, KHA, et cetera. Do we have any idea today, can anyone tell me the number of illegal aliens that are being serviced by any of these organizations? Does anyone keep track of that? Is that checked when recipients are receiving funding? Can the administration answer that? I know there's some providers here as well.
Generally what we found when it comes, so it depends who you talk to. If it's UF Health, no, they just provide care. They're not checking status, right? If it's a soup kitchen, they're providing food. They're not checking status. The majority of these programs by nonprofits locally do not have the mechanism or the process in place to check and confirm someone's citizenship.
I think, have you talked to UF Health?
Yeah.
I understand someone shows up in the emergency room, they're required by law to take care of them, but at some point, they go through a financial check on that particular person.
I don't remember if it's a financial check, and I will need to check my notes. There is later on where they try to identify some documentation, but as far as even knowing if that documentation is legitimate.
How about KHA? Since they're here, and I assume they would be representative of an organization that receives quite a bit of our $50 million of our funding.
Good morning. Hi, Sarah Lynn with KHA. Through the chair. So we, the students that KHA works with have to be part of Duval County public school system or a private school. So we get their student ID. So essentially what we're doing is relying on the school system in some form to check that. We then don't go also check it.
Are there students in our school system, educate me, that are not in the country legally?
So I believe so, and I do think that that's, I mean, I don't want to, you probably know better than I do. I think that's kind of up for debate right now, whether school systems should look more into this. But I do think that there is ways that folks who are not citizens to receive school services. I think that is correct. But we are serving children that are in the school system. So we don't then go and check again for it's, and I will agree that it's just would be a huge burden on the providers, especially those that are serving, like 2,000 kids a day to check that. So I think that's more just what I'm concerned, the administrative burden.
I guess my frustration is that for the 4 years, we let, God, those 20 million people into this country, and there was not a lot of hollering and screaming by a lot of people, and now we're facing the consequences of that. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like we have got to get a hold of this situation and understand who's in this country, and whether they're adults or children, we need to understand that. And I think this bill begins that process. Is it perfect? I don't know. There's a lot of information here, but we have got to start a process to where we know who's here. And we're responsible for Duval County here, but just very frustrating that we don't know that, and we should know that. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go. We got all these folks in the queue over here, and then we'll come back around. Councilmember Boylan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, in speaking to the amendment Councilmember Amaro offered, I did go through it in detail on Friday, so I have a pretty good understanding. It's a pretty straightforward amendment to the process, and that's why I supported it today. It's going to be more difficult for me to support the bill without that amendment involved in there, because it speaks to the care of individuals, particularly the youth. My concern, and I want to raise this, and I'm not sure who to the chair to who I should direct this question, but I'm looking at the CSG component of this, which is parts 4 and 6, if you will. The prospect of enforcement. We've got folks who show up at the Florida Theater, JSO. Are we going to be checking residency or citizenships as they come in through the WJCT? Ready to Learn programs, arts and entertainment programs, WJCT. How are we going to know if someone who's watching that program is an authorized alien? So I guess the question I would want to pose to someone who can answer, maybe Mr. Stefopoulos or somebody, how do we enforce this? How do we document this? And Councilman Salem just mentioned the fact the difficulty in doing that as it relates to the social services program. I think it's even greater challenge as it relates to the cultural service grants program. So is this just a statement that this bill is looking to make with respect to those organizations? Is there a viable opportunity to enforce what Section 6 calls for? Through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilmember Boylan. So what the legislation accomplishes is in each of those grant-funded categories throughout our code, the top, I would say, three, Kids Hope Alliance, Chapter 118 grants and direct contracts, and the Cultural Service Program, it requires that a contractual provision be included in each of those grant agreements when funds are given to a recipient agency that prohibits the use of the city funds for the provision of services or support to any unauthorized alien. How that is enforced, I think, may differ depending on the administering department or agency for the contracts that would be issued for those programs and services. And there's been some difficulty in that expressed by the administration and Dr. Grass with respect to not knowing who the student IDs are issued to the student. The other part about Kids Hope Alliance is they also might provide ancillary services to families, so it's not necessarily just the student that's receiving the services, but how they don't have potentially a mechanism to confirm the parent's status. So I think to the extent that the different administering departments may require a certification by the receiving agency could be an option, or they could perform an audit of the services to see if they can, and that's a much more involved process administratively. Other than that, and of course the introducer may also have some thoughts on how he envisioned it to be enforced. The other option would be is you could discuss various carve-outs. There was one provided in the Amaro amendment that addressed other aspects, not necessarily the cultural services piece. There would be different alternatives you could take to try to carve out to capture those instances where they're providing services in the form of tickets to events or television programming, that it's not knowingly or intentionally provided to unauthorized aliens, or you would have to think through some various alternatives, I think.
And I think, thank you. And to that end, my great fear is the CSG application is going to have a box. Check this box. Do you aver that you do not, provide services to unauthorized aliens in this process? And I, with good conscience, as the CEO of WJCT at the time, I couldn't sign that. I couldn't guarantee that there were not unauthorized aliens watching, WJCT or listening to NPR radio. I just think, and I guess I would turn to Councilman Diamond, if you had some thoughts as to the rationale as to why you thought this was important to do, and your thoughts on how this should be enforced.
Through the chair to Councilman Boylan. So first of all, we're not asking the right question here. I understand your frustration, but the issue is an open border, which has now forced this issue on us. I'm not forcing this issue. The issue is here because we had an open border. We have people who don't have food, who don't have housing, who fought for their country in Duval County, and we're saying we don't have money for them. But instead, we have money for people who are not here legally, who literally broke the law when they got here. So that's the situation we're in. The bill is supposed to bring that to life. So the very specific question you're asking, what do we do about enforcement? So, and we'll use PFG or any of those if you'd like to. So first of all, the administration has an incredible amount of authority here, right? We are legislators. We have the power of the purse. We can put restrictions on. But ultimately, it's their job. And we literally have a bill that is doing something very similar to this that Councilwoman Cumber passed on sexual predators are not allowed to get money for grants, right? So here's the deal. This is my license. I can get services. That's the enforcement mechanism, which is what every other county and city, municipality, and state that is passing similar legislation is doing. It's very easy to get a license in America. The second thing is, in our contracts with our providers, we can literally say, this is the standard, right? That's why we have an executive to provide administrative function, right? But we passed the bill, and the mayor, I don't think the mayor is going to do anything helpful with this, but it's our job to do the right thing and enforce it and implement it. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Clark Murray, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Reingold, if you would come forward. Mr. Popula stated that you were the author of this particular bill? Of the amendment. Okay, so then you may not need to come forward. Have a seat. Thank you for now. Okay, so to address the first parts of it, in regards to requiring the mayor's office to have various reports, and I think within like 30 days, I think this month was the month that they were supposed to have some kind of report if this bill had gone through at the time that it was anticipated. I think it's burdensome. I think it's an overreach on our part to ask them to do those things in regards to employment, in regards to any of the applications, in regards to federal grants, in regards to public housing. It's burdensome. And that's a legal term, and that's a legal defense in regards to some type of legislation or law. So the other part that I really want to hone in on has to do with the housing portion. So, through the chair to Ms. Stefopoulos, I think were you the one who actually wrote? Okay. So my initial concern, which is still existing now, has to do with the housing portion. How is this going to be implemented, the housing portion of it, without violating the Fair Housing Act, without violating Public Law 117-103? How is this going to be implemented? How is it going to be enforced? And that can be, Mr. Stefopoulos, you can answer that, or the bill sponsor, introducer, can answer that as well.
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark Murray. So the housing piece is only pertaining to the directive for the mayor's office to provide a report. There's nothing in here pertaining to instituting a new policy with respect to potential unauthorized aliens within public housing. So that provision just says that that's part of the report that was being requested in the mayor's office, that they should supply information regarding the number of unauthorized aliens, if any, that reside in the public housing under our jurisdiction. There was nothing further in the bill that would implement a policy pertaining to if there are any in public housing that they would not be allowed, or that there would be some sort of provision that mandated some sort of change or different policy pertaining to those individuals. It was informational only.
Okay, thank you for that. So, with that being said, once again, how are these persons going to be identified? Because I see this as tantamount to me going to some kind of apartment complex, me filling out an application, and they asking me a question being on the application, or they ask me verbally, are you pregnant? Because that shouldn't be a stipulation of getting an apartment. Are you from the west side of town as opposed to the south side of town? That's the kind of question this is. That's what this bill is doing. And it is an overreach, it's inappropriate, and it's not our job. Our jobs as a local institution, as a local government, our job is to enact laws that help with services, help with roads. This is way beyond our purview, in my opinion. Additionally, it's just bad legislation, and I think it's disingenuous. Because once again, we're targeting a group, and you have to identify that group. How are you going to identify that group without violating their civil rights? And it's very questionable. And once again, the motivation for this, I think, is to impress people who aren't in the city. And it's not needed. And I wish we had done this like weeks ago, because I was really ready. I've moved on mentally from this bill because I got notes all over it, because it's so ridiculous. I'm going to stop right there, Chair. Thank you.
All right. Go back around for a second time. Councilmember Peluso. Hold on, Councilmember Morrow. Oh, you're on your own motion? Okay, go ahead, Councilmember Morrow, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to piggyback on something Mrs. Salem said that I agree with, and frustration. I find it frustrating that Brittany nor Dr. Grass could give me an emphatic yes or no. I didn't feel any conviction in their response, and that I find frustrating. As a dad who has put kids through the public school system, I could not get my kids enrolled in kindergarten unless I proved residency and vaccination shots and things of that nature, that to prove that they were legitimate. I could not get them in the front door. If I were applying for public housing, I would not be able to do that unless I demonstrated residency and a whole threshold of criteria, if you will. I could not even get on the list of public housing If I went to UF Health and because of the Hill-Burton Act and the money that we provide for medically indigent, I'd get treated, but then the hospital would require some kind of financial history to know where I am, what I do, who I am, that they can recover, if not all, some of the money that has been spent. So I believe there are systems in place, there are checks to somehow mitigate, if not stop, the use of our services to those who are not legitimately eligible to receive it. And that's why I think the legislation is not necessary. Should there be reporting? Yes. I don't have a problem with the reporting. I think there has to be some accountability on both sides of the dais. There has to be some accounting somewhere. And if creating a reporting mechanism is necessary, again, I don't think we need to codify the ordinances to do that. We can do that. We can make sure that there's a reporting mechanism in place. But I just rise to express my frustration with the fact that I couldn't get any conviction in the response to Mr. Salem's questions. Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else on the bill for the second time? No? I know you're going to make a motion to withdraw. I'll just add a few comments here, going last in the queue, I guess. You know, I hear all the comments. They make sense. But at the end of the day, I guess a question to Councilmember Diamond, this is more about just getting the numbers, getting a report and saying, hey, this is how much money is going out to this organization is giving XYZ to these people. 50% are illegal aliens, or 20% are illegal aliens, the other ones aren't. Is that the bulk of this, or?
To the chair. So that's part of it, right? And then the other part is how we actually spend the money, right? Is the money going to, organizations that are doing that? And so what I would imagine the implementation looks like down the road is when you apply for the money, you agree that you're not going to use Jacksonville taxpayer money for people who are not in Jacksonville legally.
Got it. Okay. That was kind of my understanding of it. And so I guess the other question then, and this is maybe to Ms. Stefopoulos, if people are here illegally and the city gives money to them, like through another organization or not through an organization, is that by nature illegal or is that legal?
To the chair, I think this kind of area of law with the new administration at the federal level is kind of constantly changing. I know there have been some recent state statutes put on the books that have tightened up from the state perspective how we handle unauthorized aliens within the state of Florida. And that's been challenged. There might be other challenges coming. I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head, and I'd be happy to look at this more closely, that would make our provision of money for services by a nonprofit or another type of entity, that in and of itself is an illegal action. I can't think of anything.
Sure.
But I'm happy to look into that further because I don't want to mislead this committee, just knowing that that's kind of an ever-evolving area of law right now.
Yep, and I think that makes sense. And I mean, I guess kind of my concern is whether it's whether we give it to them directly or indirectly, it's kind of it's taking away from the greater pot of money that is sort of taxpayer money that is supposed to be used on services that are also needs for the taxpayers that are paying in, so to speak. So that's only kind of my concern right now. But okay, that's something else. All right, so with that, I don't think we don't have any other discussion on the bill. Councilmember Peluso, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just kind of want to speak to a couple of different things and acknowledge some of the things that our colleagues have said. I appreciate that Ms. Stefopoulos continues to say unauthorized alien, because that is the appropriate term. It is not illegal to enter the country. That is a civil violation. It is a civil violation, not a criminal violation. It does not affect criminal code. And you're laughing, but talk to a defense attorney. Look at U.S. code. It is a civil violation. It is not a criminal one. And that is part of the reason why it's been so interesting in the court system today. One of the questions was about the purpose of the government in general. The purpose of our government is to provide services to tax-paying residents. Individuals who live here, spend money here, rent here, are paying taxes. Doesn't matter what their status is. They're still paying taxes into our general fund, into our infrastructure taxes, into our gas taxes. We don't ask the status when they give us the tax dollars. Why are we asking them their status otherwise? To the point of what Ms. Tamara Clark-Murray mentioned, I mean, it just feels like a nanny state. The idea that we would have people seek a license or something is kind of ridiculous and completely outside the bounds of what this government should be doing. To the point of what Councilmember Boylan had mentioned about, like, okay, CSG grants, other grantees. What about the Jaguars? Somebody goes to a Jaguar game, are we going to ask them before they get a ticket on Ticketmaster what their status is? That's a municipal building. Five-Star Arena. We are wading into waters that are completely unnecessary for our city government. And I don't understand why we would do this. I think we are risking federal dollars for Jacksonville Housing Authority, for other, our entire housing division seeks federal dollars. If we are violating federal law by doing stuff like this, which there are many states, there are many cities that are doing the opposite of this. And, states like Texas still allow still allow people to go to universities who are unauthorized aliens, because they realize that by not educating or providing services to people who live in their society, the risk is there's possibility they'll commit crimes, that there will be more homelessness, that it will hurt and affect society in a negative way. So you try to make sure that people have access to these resources to make sure they don't become a problem for our government later on. Now with this bill in its current form, without the amendments, this literally goes after children. Know what you're voting for. Know what you're voting on. We cannot allow for this bill to stand. I make a motion to withdraw this bill.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the withdrawal. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on the withdrawal? Nope. Okay, all right. Go ahead and all in favor, raise your hand for the withdrawal. 3, 4, all against, all opposed, raise your hand. All right, the amendment fails. So, any other discussion on the bill? Yep, on the bill? Okay, Councilmember Salem, recognized.
I'll make it quick. There are organizations locally that help illegal people, but it's not taxpayer dollars. I think that's the difference. And I welcome those organizations to kick in and help where taxpayer dollars are not being used. Just want to tell a quick story. I have been out with the PATH team as they approach homeless people. And of course the question comes up, do you want to go home? Put them on a bus. The first thing they have to do is show ID. We can't purchase them a bus ticket unless they have legal documentation. And if they don't have an ID, we take them to the tax collector's office where they do a screening on them. If they can't get an ID, we can't put them on a bus to send them home. It's as simple as that. If you put these processes in place, things will work. So I will support the bill. Thank you.
All right, so with that, I guess we will go ahead and open the ballot, which is technically a hand vote on this. So all in favor of 2025-138, signify by raising your hand. 3, 4, all opposed? All right, the bill fails. All right, thank you, Councilmember Diamond.
Mr. Chair, was that I apologize, we had 4 against and 3 for?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that correct? Thank you.
Yep. 3, 4, 4 against. Okay. All right. It was. Oh, my bad. Oh, okay. Okay, it was 1, 2, 3, 4 for the bill, and then 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 against the bill. There we go. The teacher's keeping us in order here. Can we get Granicus back up? This is ridiculous. All right. Item number 3, 2025-189 is deferred. Item